evening and welcome viewers. In our last lecture, we were discussing about spectroscopy, the origin of spectroscopy, the types of spectroscopy and the nature of spectroscopy. We have seen this lecture is all about Balmer formula, hydrogen spectra and Bose model of hydrogen atom. So viewers, you know that in 1666, Sir Isaac Newton was the first to use the term spectra. So after that, in 1814, Fraunhofer found that the solar spectra contains some dark lines. And soon after that, Kirchhoff and Bunsen also found that the spectra contains some dark lines. At that times, both of them were unable to explain why the spectra contains dark lines. Then, in 1817, Levy and Dewar found that the spectra of elements follows a type of pattern. There are some regularities in the pattern. What type of pattern that was? He found that the spectra of, let's say, in case of hydrogen atom, the spectral lines, the spacing and the intensities, both were decreasing towards higher wave number side, or we can say that on lower wavelength side. So this was the observation. This is how the spectra in the visible region of hydrogen looks like. So it contains the first line, that is very darker, means it have higher intensity. Next line is quite lower intensity. Next, and in this manner the intensities are decreasing and the spacing between these lines is also decreasing. So this is a type of pattern was observed by Levy and Dewar in 1817, and this series ends at when this numbers becomes infinity. Then this gave a series limit. After that, in 1885, Balmer found the spectra of hydrogen atom in visible region. He found this type of spectra for visible part of hydrogen atom. So he gave a formula to calculate the wavelengths of these spectral lines. So what formula he gave was, he found that lambda is equals to 3646 n square over n square minus 4 angstrom, where n varies from 345 up to infinity. So this was the Balmer formula in 1885 given by Balmer. So this formula contains n, a variable. So Balmer found that by putting the values of n is equals to 3, 4, 5 up to infinity, we can get the lines of h alpha, h beta, h gamma, h delta and up to h infinity. So this was the formula for calculation of wavelength of spectral lines given by Balmer. After that, Rydberg gave a formula for calculation of wavelength. That formula was as n1 square minus 1 by 2 n2 square, where n1 is less than n2. And RH is a Rydberg constant for hydrogen atom. So this formula was given by Rydberg. So at that time, Rydberg gave that formula, but he was unable to calculate the find of this constant. He said that the wavelength of the spectral lines comes out to be like this, where this term is a fixed term and this term is running term. Rydberg mentioned this. So he said that R is a constant, but at that time, around 1885, he was unable to find this value. This is now experimentally nowadays we have this value is 9677 point. Let me see. We have the value of RH. We have 109677 5.9 77.57 centimeter inverse. So this is the value for Rydberg constant for hydrogen atom. So next, this is the case of simplest spectra, that is for hydrogen atom spectra. So next simplest spectra was of alkali elements. So you know that alkali elements. Next spectra was of alkali elements. So it was found that in case of alkali elements, there were also some patterns. There are some series, and that series there are 4 series in case of alkali spectra. That series were named as principal series. After that, principal sharp series, diffuse series, and fundamental series. So these series are categorized in case of alkali atom spectra. We will discuss these series in details in our subsequent lectures. This lecture is all about hydrogen atom spectra, so we will not throw much light on this type of spectra. So this is the alkali spectra. So alkali spectra contains 4 series. So this series comes in UV region, and this series comes in visible region, and this series comes in IR region. So this was the spectra for alkali elements. So it was found that in case of alkali elements, there were also some patterns in the series, in the spectral lines, and the formula for the wavelength calculation of wavelength of alkali atom spectral lines were given by Rydberg as he gave a formula for calculation of wavelength of these alkali atom spectra, that was as this is Ra Z square by 1 over N1 minus del 1 square minus 1 by N2 minus del 2 square. So this formula for the calculation of wavelengths of alkali elements were given by Rydberg, where Ra is the Rydberg constant for the whatever atom we used, whatever spectra, and N1 and N2 are the levels on which the energy is taken into consideration, and lambda 1 and lambda 2 are the quantum defects. So this formula was given by Rydberg for alkali spectra. So the next if we move towards middle of the periodic table, then the spectra becomes more complex, because this spectra is complex in comparison to the spectra of hydrogen atom. So as we proceed towards the middle of the periodic table, the spectra becomes more and more complex. Despite of this, there were some regularities in the spectra, and that regularities were studied by Ritsch and Rydberg. That will come in our subsequent lectures, that known as Rydberg-Ritsch principle. So this lecture is about hydrogen atom spectra. So this is how the spectroscopy grew. First we see the spectra of hydrogen atom, it was very simplest. Next the spectra of alkali, it was quite complex, and the formula for the calculation of wavelength given by as next. The spectra of the more complex elements were quite complex, yet there are some regularities in their wavelengths, in their spectral lines. So next we will see, so we studied Balmer formula. Next we will see the hydrogen spectra. So hydrogen spectra, we have discussed about the visible part of hydrogen spectra. So visible part, that comes under Balmer series. So Balmer was the first to observe the spectra of hydrogen. Next we have some series of hydrogen atom corresponding to that series. Let me first write the name. You know that first series is Lyman series, next is Balmer series, Paschen, Brackett, and Fun series. you know that this come under the UV region of electromagnetic spectrum. This come under visible region, and Paschen and bracket come under IR, near IR and far IR regions. And as we go towards higher electromagnetic spectrums. So this was the naming for the spectral lines for hydrogen atom. First series contains Lyman, Balmer, Paschen, bracket and Fupund. So first Balmer gave only one formula for Balmer series. Lyman series, Paschen, bracket series, these series are discovered later after Bohr's model in 1913. So these series were discovered in 1960, 1922 and 1926. So at that time only one series were known, that was Balmer series in the visible region. Nowadays we are familiar with all these types of series of the hydrogen atom. So now let us first discuss Bohr's model, Bohr's assumption to explain why the spectral lines are like this. So let us first write what were the successes of Bohr's model. So in 1913, Bohr model. So in 1930, we write for Bohr's model of atom. So in what were the successes? Let me first write successes. So first he successfully explained the hydrogen atom spectra. Next, he was very accurately calculated the calculation of Rydberg constant. He gave the experimental value of Rydberg constant. Next, he was able to give the frequency of spectral lines. So these were the successes of Bohr's model of atom in 1913. Balmer found the formula in 1885. So nearly about after 30 years, Niels Bohr presented a model in order to explain the spectra of hydrogen atom. So that model was semi-classical model. I will try to answer why this model is called semi-classical model. So let us first throw light on the successes of this model. So this model successfully explained the hydrogen atom spectra. So why the spacings are like this, as I drawn in earlier case. Next, this model successfully calculate the value of Rydberg constant R that Rydberg were unable to calculate. Next, this model gave the frequencies of spectral lines, a formula for calculation the frequency of spectral lines. This model successfully explains. So let us Bohr assumed some postulates. On the basis of that postulates, he derived all these relations. So let us first write what were the basic postulates given by Bohr. So let us first write one by one. So Bohr's first postulate was an electron revolves around the nucleus in some fixed circular orbits. And that those orbits are stationary, and electron will not radiate any electromagnetic radiations while revolving in these orbits. So this was the first assumption given by Bohr. So as you know that classically by Rutherford, Rutherford gave a model in which he said electron revolves around the nucleus, and the value of its radius could be anything, any possible value. Consider a positively charged nucleus and electron revolves around this nucleus in a circular orbit. Let me make it a perfect, try to make it a perfect sphere. I was unable. Let me try to make it a perfect now. Now this is a nucleus and electron revolves around this nucleus in a circular orbit. So this is the distance, we can say this is the distance. As this is a circle, so all the radiations are going to, all the distance is going to be same. So you know that classically the electron could be at any position from the nucleus. It could be at here, 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 anywhere. So classically the radius of electron can take any values. So, but what Bohr took was he restricted the value of the radius. He took a condition on the radius. He said electron can't revolve in any arbitrary orbits. There are some fixed orbits that are the parking orbits, he said them, the parking orbits or the stationary orbits. So he said that electrons revolves only in some fixed orbits, and while revolving in that on those orbits, electron will not radiate any kind of radiations. But you know that classically if a charged particle revolves, it should radiate electromagnetic waves. But this concept was ruled out in this postulate. So we can say that this postulate contains some theories from the classical physics and some theories from the quantum physics. So Bohr fixed the value of R, quantized. He said that electron can revolve only in some fixed orbits, not any arbitrary orbits, only some fixed orbits. So he quantized the radius, means the quantization, he took the idea from Planck's quantization condition. So this is the quantum concept. So hence in this manner, this model is semi-classical model. Take some ideas from classical mechanics, take some ideas from quantum mechanics, not purely classical, not purely quantum mechanically. So hence it is named as semi-classical model for atom. So now you know that electron revolves around in a circular orbit. So anything that revolves in a circle, it needs some centripetal force. So in this case, when electron revolves around the nucleus, so in this case the centripetal force is provided by the Coulombian attraction force between the positively charged nucleus and the electron. You can see in this case electron revolves around the nucleus in a circular orbit, and in order to maintain this centripetal force is provided by this Coulombian attraction force. So if we write mathematically the centripetal force, you know that mv square by r. If r is the radius and electrons are revolving with velocity v of m mass, then this centripetal force is provided by the Coulombian attraction force. You know that Coulombian attraction force is k q1 q2. q1, you can take the charge on the nucleus, that is Ze, and the charge on electron is E. Only the magnitude of force is taken, hence we ignore the sign on the charge of electron. So we left with this. Next, what we will do, cancelling r from both sides, we left with mv square is equals to kZe square by r. Next, if you multiply this with half, both the sides, then this gave the value of kinetic energy. We represent this by T. So kinetic energy of the electron while revolving in the cell is given by this. So this is the value of kinetic energy in the, so this is the value of kinetic energy. So we can put this value separate. Now you know that the potential energy can be written as k q1 q2 over r. So in case of potential, sign takes very much importance. So we will consider the sign k q1. q1 is Ze and Q2 is minus E. So we can write this K Z E square by R. So this is the potential energy of the electron. If you find the total energy, that is the sum of its kinetic energy and its potential energy. So the total energy comes out to be, you can easily solve this equation. This comes out to be minus of half kz e square by r. So this is the total energy of the electron. You can relate this expression with the kinetic energy and the potential energy. So we can also write that energy can be written as energy is equals to, this is equals to negative of kinetic energy, and energy is equals to half of potential energy. So this is the relation between kinetic energy and total energy and potential energy and total energy. So in this manner we can find the energy of an electron revolving in a circular orbit. So this was the first assumption of Bohr. Now we move towards the second assumption. So the second assumption of Bohr was, he said, let me erase this. After that we will come to the second postulate. This expression is of importance, and this expression is also of importance. So I can't erase this. Second postulate was, Bohr's second postulate was the 2 pi times the angular momentum of an electron. 2 pi times the angular momentum of an electron is equals to integral multiple of Planck's constant. Let me write 2 pi times the angular momentum of electron is integral multiple of Planck's constant. So mathematically we can write this postulate 2 pi times the angular momentum represented by L is equals to integral multiple of h, where h is Planck's constant, n is any integer. So he restrict the angular momentum of electron. He said that angular momentum of electron can't take any arbitrary values. It has some fixed and quantized value, because n is fixed. N is now 1, 2, 3 up to so on. So in this manner its angular momentum is also fixed. It can't take any arbitrary value. This angular momentum is quantized. So this is the meaning of second postulate. So we can find, on solving, 2 pi times angular momentum L can be written as moment of linear momentum is equals to nh. So from here we will find the value of velocity v. V is equals to nh over 2 pi mr. So this is the value of 2 pi mr from here. So now substituting the equation 2 in equation 1, what we will get? Let us substitute the value of v in this equation. So what we will have is half of m, v square is n square h square over 4 pi square m square r square is equals to half of k z e square over r. So on solving this, cancelling 1r from both the sides, so we will find the value of radius r. Taking r on that side, we have cancelling 2 from both the sides, m 1m cancelled, so we have n square h square over 4 pi square m k Z E square. So this is the value of R calculated by using Bose postulate. So from here you can see that H is a constant, 4 is a constant, pi is a constant, M constant, K constant, Z constant and E constant. Only one parameter that is variable is N. So can we write, Bohr used this term as a constant and the constant was A naught. So we can write R is proportional to N square. We can write R is proportional to N square. So from N square, Rn, it would be more appropriate to write Rn. So Rn is equals to N square A naught. So this was the relation between radius and N. So as N increases, so radius also increases in this manner, square of N. So this was the relation between radius and N given by Bohr. A naught is a constant whose value is 0.53 angstrom. Bohr's first radius by putting N is equals to 1. So this was Bohr's first radius of 0.53 angstrom in case of hydrogen atom. So in this manner the value of radius we have arrived. So next we will see its third postulate. So I think I should write this result on one side. R is equals to N square A naught. So let me write R is equals to N square A naught. These are the results we extract where A naught. So this was the value. Now the third postulate. Now let us throw light on its third postulate. Bohr's third postulate was Bohr's third postulate was about the frequency of spectral lines. He said that the frequency of spectral lines is proportional to the energy difference. The frequency of spectral lines is proportional to the energy difference. So this was the Bohr's third postulate. The frequency, it was about the frequency or wavelength. The frequency of spectral lines is proportional to energy difference between the terms. So we can write the energy, the frequency is represented by nu dash. So h nu dash can be represented as E initial minus E final. So this was the calculation for energy in case of, this was the calculation for frequency in case of hydrogen spectra. So you know that the value of energy was minus, if you remember, minus of K Z E square by 2R. So this was the value of energy we have calculated from the first postulate. Now substituting this value of energy. Now in this value R we will substitute the value of R from this equation. So we have Rn. From here we can write Ri or R initial is equals to minus of K Z E square over 2. R is N square H square. This term will go upside. 4 pi square mk Z E square. So this is the value of energy by putting the value of R, by cancelling on sorting out. We have EI is equals to minus of K Z E square twice Z E square pi square M K z square e raised to the power 4. This z becomes twice and e becomes 4 times, and here n square over h square. So this is the value of energy for the ith state. So you know that this term contains negative sign, so when we write ei minus ef, so this negative sign will come this way. We can write h nu dash is equals to, this is a constant, so this will come out, so we can write in this manner. So this I should write quite this side. So h nu dash is equals to, this constant is twice of k z square e raised to the power 4 pi square m k square. This k is also come from the outside, k square. Now h square, h n is different for different states, so this will come nf square minus ni square. So this is the value for frequency. So we can write frequency is hc by lambda. So this term becomes, this was a constant, so we can write 1 by lambda is equals to 2k square z square e raised to the power 4 pi square m over h cube c into 1 by nf square minus 1 by ni square. So you can relate this formula with Rydberg formula. So you know that in case of Rydberg formula we have this r infinity 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square, if you remember, RH for hydrogen atom. So this is a constant term. So this is the Rydberg constant for hydrogen atom. So Bohr was successfully able to explain, successfully gave the calculation for this term. So let me write what was the term for this value. So he gave the formula for this.